Hey guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I'm going to bring you a book review of the new book by Garth Nix. This is Angel Mage. So the name Garth Nix may be familiar to you if you are a fantasy fan and maybe can't quite place it. He wrote a series of books called the Abhorsen series, and the first one is Sabriel, which came out in 1995. It's a really iconic cover and an iconic book, and I read that earlier this year and I really enjoyed it. Would highly recommend the audiobook, which is read by Tim Curry. So I was very excited to hear that he was writing a new book, and this is not a YA book. It's not a children's book like his other books tend to be. This is his very first full-length adult standalone novel. So I was very interested to get my hands on this, and I have some mixed feelings about it. This book comes out on the 17th of October here in the UK from Gollancz, and I was indeed sent a copy of this book in exchange for an honest review. However, as per usual, that does not impact my feelings on this book. This is also going to be a spoiler-free review, so let's get started. In Angel Mage, we follow 5 characters, and the first one is named Lilith. She is our villain, and we have our 4 other characters who are kind of separate. They don't know each other, anything like that, but they are pulled into her nefarious schemes. So I think I had some expectations about this book going in that were not necessarily met. So a couple of things. First of all, this is marketed as an adult book. However, it really didn't feel like an adult book. This felt like a YA novel, a children's novel, but maybe with more nudity and violence. It didn't feel like an adult book, and that may be because I've been reading things like Joe Abercrombie recently. I've been reading a lot of grimdark stuff like that. So it's not that adult novels need to have this grit to them. They don't need to be dark, but I think it's maybe just his writing style lends itself really well to young adult books and to maybe children's books, but the way that he writes and his dialogue and whatnot just don't feel adult. So immediately I was completely thrown off. This book is also a standalone, and I feel like it would have really benefited from a sequel, or I think that if, we'll go into this in a little bit, but if a lot was chopped out and maybe certain parts of the story were pulled out, then it could have been a much tighter story, a much kind of better book. There were some amazing things in this book that I really loved, but there was a lot of clutter, there was a lot of mess. So first, in terms of the world building, you may have seen on the front cover, a good friend of this channel, Joe Abercrombie, says that this is the most original magic he has seen in years. On the back, we have a starred review from Kirkus, which is a major trade review publication that says that this is an incredibly complex system of angelic magic and all of this, an original and gripping adventure. It says that he's one of the best world builders in fantasy and all of this. And I don't feel like a lot of that is necessarily true. And it's no shade on Garth Nix because he is a magnificent writer. I really enjoyed the world. But the big thing that's obviously splayed across the cover here is that this is an incredibly unique magic system, and I don't think that that was the case. It's basically angels and icons, and I feel like when you have something that's so kind of close to an actual religion, it's not like based on Catholicism, and it doesn't have ties to Catholicism, but it's pretty damn close to Catholicism. You have cardinals, you have angels who represent different things, you have levels of angels, so like seraphim and, archangels and all of this. I'm not religious, so I don't know if any of this is making sense in terms of Catholicism, but I hope you know what I mean. It felt too familiar for me to feel like it was really the most original magic I've seen in years. And while it was good and it was interesting, it didn't have the depth and the levels that I would expect from something that is really unique and really complicated. Like, say, my favorite world builder and magic system user, Brandon Sanderson, his magic systems are really complex, and they're so incredibly unique because he really drills down to the greatest detail that you can possibly get in terms of the magic and the way that it works, and I don't feel like we really got there with this book. It was good and it was interesting in terms of the magic, but it didn't feel like that unique thing that had been so hyped up for me. Although speaking of world building, I did really enjoy the world. It has kind of a flavor of maybe medieval France, and you know, we've got musketeers in this book. We have, you know, these huge walled sort of medieval feeling cities. So that was really cool. I really enjoyed that, but it didn't, I don't think that I'm gonna remember this book because of the magic or because of the world, if that makes sense. I would have really loved a deeper dive into that world. And this kind of brings me to what I mean when I say that this book felt a little bit messy, because I mean, this is a big book. It's, I think, 530 something pages long, and it doesn't feel like it should have been that long. I love long books. I love a long fantasy book. Give me the Robert Jordans, give me the George R.R. Martins, give me the Scott Lynches of the world, give me the R.F. Kuangs. I love long fantasy books. But the thing that I love about long fantasy books that feel like they should be that long is the fact that you feel like they're, at least if they're sort of, you know, sprawling you know, descriptions of clothing or food or something like that that some people get annoyed with, but I really love. You feel like there's a purpose and you feel like there's a point, and I feel like a lot could have been trimmed out of this book, and maybe some of those pages could have been redirected elsewhere. And I feel like the biggest place where this could have really been improved was the characters. I really enjoyed the characters in this book. I feel like I keep just like slamming this book. I did really enjoy reading it, and I really liked a couple of the characters. However, we get 5 points of view. We get Lilith, who is our villain. We get Agnes, who is a sort of up-and-coming swordswoman who joins the Queen's Musketeers, who are like the elite Queen's Guard. We have Henri, who is a clerk who would love to be part of the military. He wants to be an artillerist. And we have Simeon, who is a doctor. He's this brilliant young doctor in training. And then we have Dorothea, and she is a scholar, and she has the ability to kind of use this angelic magic in an unusual way. So I really liked those characters, and I liked their friendship, although I feel like I wish that we got a little bit deeper into the friendship, because I love friendships in fantasy books, especially kind of platonic friendships are really my favorite thing. So I feel like because we got all 5 of those, including Lilith's perspective, it felt a little bit like we didn't get to know anyone particularly well. And I think that this book would have really benefited from having 2 points of view. One being Lilith's, because she was great and I really liked her, and then also Dorothea, because Dorothea was the one that not only I felt the most connection to, because I think she gets a little bit more screen time than some of the others in terms of their points of view, but I think she's just a little bit more interesting than some of the other characters. And I liked them, and I liked their presence. A couple of them grew on me as the story went along. So say Agnes, I wasn't a huge fan of because she was just kind of waving her sword about and not really doing anything else, but she really, by the end of the book, she could back up what she was saying about herself. She was, you know, supposed to be this amazing swordswoman, and she really proved it, which I love. I hate it when the opposite happens, when people talk up like how amazing their character is at something and then they just don't ever do the thing. That drives me crazy. So I was really happy that all of these characters really felt like they were planned and plotted really well. However, we just, with 5 points of view, we just didn't really get to know anyone very well. And it's not just like we get a point of view chapter and it switches back and forth. Like, you'll get like that much space and it'll be Henri's point of view, and then you'll get like that much space and it'll be Agnes, and it just like swaps back and forth so much. You never really spend enough time with anyone other than Lilith and I think Dorothea. So it would have been really great to just have those two, still have the friendship and everything like that, but really focus on those two, or, you know, focus on Lilith and someone else from the friend group if you happen to prefer them more. I think that it would have done a lot for the story. It would have done a lot for making me believe in the friendship a little bit quicker. It would have done a lot to heighten the stakes of this book a little bit. In terms of the plot and pacing, I did find some parts were a little bit slower than others. I would like pick up this book and read like 60 pages and then put it down for 3 days because I didn't really feel the desire to pick it up, and then I would pick it up and I'd read like 70 pages. So it definitely went really quickly, but I think in terms of like my personal interest in the book. It flagged a little bit kind of at the beginning, but once we really sort of sunk our teeth into what was happening, I really enjoyed this. It is split into parts. And this is kind of going back to the whole sort of tidying up of this book. I mean, the last part, which is what, like, hold on, sorry. It's like this long. This could have been a book. This really genuinely could have been its own book. And I feel like if we had all of that kind of tidied up, we had the editing maybe a little bit tighter, some of the writing a little bit tighter, and we had a sequel, this would have been freaking amazing. It would have been just phenomenal. At the end of the day, as I say, I feel like I'm just slamming this book. I did really enjoy it. I had a great time reading it. I read the last maybe, I don't know, 40% of this book in like 2 days, where I had kind of struggled with the beginning a little bit. I read this over the course of about 2 weeks. So to say that I read the last part in like 2 days was pretty impressive for me. So I don't know, I have some mixed feelings, but I think overall this is a 3-star read for me, maybe 3.5. I'm gonna have to ponder. I finished it earlier today and I need a little bit more time to digest, but definitely a 3, maybe a 3.5. It won't go up to a 4 for me. I was a little bit disappointed because I had such high expectations from the marketing and from like the blurbs and everything, but I do think that this is a really solid, fun fantasy adventure. It feels a little bit young, but if you like YA and sort of younger feeling books, you will definitely enjoy this. If you like the really gritty, detailed, like grim adult fantasy, this probably won't be the thing for you. But if you're going to be reading Garth Nix, I don't think you would be expecting grimdark anyway. So that is my review for Angel Mage. You will be able to find this book in stores on the 17th of October, and I would love to hear from you when you have read it. For anyone who has read it early like I have, let me know what you think if you are a fan of his books. I've only ever read Sabriel and I really enjoyed that, so if you have other ones of his that you really enjoy, definitely let me know. I post bookish content to this channel fairly frequently, so go ahead and hit subscribe, check back soon, and I will see you next time.